So I want to respond to a commenter who thinks that I have a bad opinion about, prison and stuff related to inmates. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. The commenter writes, "Hi, I was with you until the few and far BS, few and far between BS. Most people are in jail and in prison for substance-related crimes. They absolutely can and do get sober and lead productive lives. You should definitely not be in your role with your poor and wholly incorrect opinion. Hope this helps." So that's a mockery of me. So thank you for writing that. I actually appreciate you writing that. So sometimes when I'm talking, I'm thinking about like most of my experience. Most of my experience was with violent sexual predators. So I'll start with that. So I'm thinking of that as I'm talking. To go back and address your comment about people, why they're in jail and prison, I absolutely agree that most people are in jail for substance-related crimes, intimacy-related crimes, theft. Those are some of the more common ones that I see. And I absolutely do think that people can and do get sober and lead productive lives. Where I have concern about that being true, just to elaborate and give you some of my experience, I don't think that people are one and done in most cases. For example, I don't think that people go to jail one time and then they're completely sober. Sometimes they do, but I do, from my experience, and this is my work experience, what I've seen is people have a high rate of recidivism, which means that they come back. They may come back a few times. And I've talked about this before in terms of like, people who have psych emergency, contact, which is where they're admitted to the hospital, where people have recidivism or people relapse and I think a number of factors lead to people being successful versus unsuccessful. So I want to say that there. And I went into doing the work that I do, and I still do the work that I do because I actually want to help people come out of incarceration. I do think more people are incarcerated than need to be. So I'm coming at you with that mindset. I would not do any type of work that I don't, that's not aligned with me and that's not aligned with the clients that I'm serving. So I want to put that there. But going back to what I said in terms of recidivism, there's usually a high rate of recidivism, especially if you were charged or you have a felony. As we all know, it's hard as heck to get a job as a felon. It's not impossible, but it's hard to get a job. It's hard to get a place to live. Even if you get a job, as a felon, you may not get a high-paying job. It also depends on where you're discharged to after you do your time. Some people go into homeless shelters. Some people go back to the environment that was conducive to the addiction. And some people, when they try to get a job and they find that they can't, they go back into jobs that are questionable. I'll put it that way so you guys can catch my drift there. Other people need a lot more case management, so they may not have a car. A lot of people that are incarcerated cannot read or write. Other things where they may need more intensive services. They need money to eat. They need to be able to get groceries until they get a job because you have to wait to get a job, so they might need benefits and things like that until they can get that. And I also believe everybody who's incarcerated, regardless of what it's for, should be getting counseling. A lot of people do not get counseling for the reasons about why they were in there, which also may lead to recidivism. That in a high degree of emotional distress from family members or the environment in which was conducive to the crime in the first place. So what I'm thinking about when I say when they don't, or that's few and far between, I'm thinking about one, recidivism. And many people reoffend get reincarcerated a number of times or have other significant challenges before they walk a life that's straight and narrow. I'll put that there. And they need more intensive services outside of prison and jail, and to help them be successful. So it could be a long road, or a multi-layered road that people walk before they're finally on the straight and narrow. And again, it depends on what city, state, and county this person is in. Some counties have more wraparound services, more services that are a lot more involved, because they have more funding. Other counties don't. So I can only speak about where I have worked. And that's for, in the cases, the stuff that I addressed first, that's for nonviolent, which is what you brought up. For violence offenders, there is a much higher rate of recidivism, and especially for people, and what I was thinking of when I was talking about this, people who do long stretches of sentences. So if you're doing, 10-year bids plus, there's a high rate of recidivism. And I've talked about this before as well. And I'll give you an example. I'll use a real world example. Our governor here in California had, done a mandatory reduction of sentences for nonviolent offenders sometime back when I was working in the prison system. And it was like, release these guys within the next week or two. Release all these people with nonviolent offenses. And these guys that were in the prison were freaking out because they don't have resources out there. And anybody who does parole planning and all of that kind of stuff, it takes a minute to get stuff lined up. And so we're essentially being asked to mass release a bunch of people who don't have services set up. And so a lot of these people, when they heard that, they were freaking out. They were trying to get disciplined so that they could actually stay in prison a little bit longer, because I know that they weren't ready. So there's multi layers, and I'm thinking about actually do a lot of work around helping people even now get out and working to get them their life back. So I absolutely believe that people can and do lead productive lives. I don't think that road is a straight walk for many people. And that's for nonviolent offenses is what I'm talking about. For violent offenses, that is a little bit more tricky. And the bulk of my experience has been with violent offenders. So I'm talking from that lens. And people who have done considerable amounts of time, first, second, and third strikers for doing violent offenses. But one of the reasons that I left, prison, which I've said this before many times on other posts, is because there's only so much you can do within a system. The system isn't designed to rehabilitate. There's a lot of shortcomings within the system, which is one of the main reasons why I left. I do think there should be more efforts to actually rehabilitate. And I do think more people would be a lot more successful. And I did some posts about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago where I address this in more detail. And I've actually thought about, ways in which I can help in terms of interventions that I can provide in the community to help people be more successful in rehabilitation, because I've worked in quite a few programs because it's something I'm passionate about. And I've done a number of years in programs to help with that. So I absolutely believe that people can rehabilitate. And not only do I believe that they can, I actually want them to, and I hope for their success. That's the whole reason I got into the line of work that I'm doing. It's so I don't have any hate for that. Whether or not I'm a bad clinician, you might feel that way. You probably won't be the last person to feel that way, to be honest. And I'm not even trying to be snarky with it, but I'll tell you, I think I have a lot more people that's waiting in line to work with me than people who are deterred from working with me. So thanks so much. Hope that helps.